Welcome everybody to Eye of the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. So today's pick a card reading, we're actually looking at the oracular divinatory psychic you. So what we really want to look at, what are your oracular abilities, your divinatory abilities, your psychic abilities, and how do they manifest and how can you best use them? And this comes from my very fervent belief that everybody is actually psychic. Everybody has probably a number of the clairsenses, for instance, if not potentially all of them, but they may or may not be accessing all of them. And or they have a lot of knowledge in the divination arts or in the occult or in spiritual matters and so forth from both this life and potentially other lives. So what we want to look at is where are yours most showing now? Where could you most develop them? What could you use them for? And that kind of thing. So we're going to sort of start with a bit of a map of it all. We'll get tarot to drill into that in a bit more level. We'll have a look at different aspects to think about, both what will help you and also what, some of the shadows or risks that are associated with divination and using your gifts and so forth. And we're going to finish, and I just want you to know this right up front so that you can be thinking about it, with a couple of kind of yes-no questions. We're actually going to use a small pocket oracle that I have that I find is quite nuanced. Only just recently got it. So it does have literally yes and no, but it also has sort of nuances on that kind of thing. So think about a couple of questions that you would like answered, particularly with regard to your divinatory skills and where they are and so forth. But, at the end of the day, you do you. If there's something else you want to ask about at the end, by all means, you can use the yes, no to fit with that. But it's primarily going to be tilted towards things to do with the divination and so forth. So just bear that in mind. So right at the end, you'll have an opportunity for a couple of yes, no type questions. So to get started, to do the pile choice, which is always important, I'll put down the numbers. And this actually is a good way for me to sort of underline what I mean by I think that everybody has psychic ability. I actually think pick a pile, pick a card readings work because of the psychic ability of the viewers, just as much, if not more, than the psychic ability of any reader that you go and see, because you've got to tune in and find the right pile or piles for you. Now, if you want to go to more than one, by all means do it. You may have a number of different divinatory and oracular abilities. No problem at all with connecting in with those and then maybe seeing what the multitude of messages might be. But you may choose by the numbers. But to also help, I've actually taken out, intuitively chosen 4 cards from a deck that's about divination, and there'll be a couple of other cards to add as sort of secondary levels of this, plus some other cards for the map of your divinatory and oracular power. But for pile number 1, we have augur, mastery. So this is the concept of the augury, the capacity to see what is coming, the kind of prophet-like type of ability. For pile 2, we have pendulum, that sort of sense of being able to ask yes, no questions, see the way that fate is swinging, what the answers are to things, sometimes also used in things like seances and mediumship and so forth. For pile 3, we have Wheel of Fortune. So this is, I think, for people who have a good sense of fate and destiny, either personally or who have a good sense about what's coming up, trends, the zeitgeist and that kind of thing. And pile 4 has Tarot, and I thought I'd have to add that one in for the other readers that potentially come here, people who are interested in learning about Tarot or similar sorts of divinatory tools and would like to be sort of able to see the nuances underneath the patterns and the probabilities of life and how you can do divination in that way. So that may help you choose. As I say, go to more than one reading if you would like. When you do know what reading or readings you want to go to, as always, I have the timestamps in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, pile 1, to your reading. So you came to a reading that had, as I said, augur or mastery, which to me is very much about the prophetic arts, being able to understand history, and so therefore be able to understand the patterns on the very big picture, world sort of level and so forth, or community level at the very least, and see what is coming in and so forth. So there is something prophetic about you. But I feel, looking at this, because we've also got prayers, smoke prayers, so a very sort of almost shamanic sort of healing feeling here, and numerology, precision, being able to see timing, divine timing, the patterns, sacred geometry, all those sort of things, how things connect together, almost like the augur here, the master here sees the matrix in a way and how the matrix operates. When we also have the Ouroboros, which is the karmic cycle, Chiron, which is healing, Vesta, which is the community, the home, the sacred, And the greys over here, which is often the sort of oppressed or misunderstood, the shy, that kind of energy intergalactically. And sorry if you can't see it completely with the ring light, but that's the card. I'll get to the chakras in a minute. I feel that pile number one, your oracular ability and your skills are connected towards healing, I think, karmic, generational, potentially karmic, and your own personal karmic lessons and so forth, and being almost a mediator with the upper realms for yourself and I think primarily for others in bringing things into balance, particularly like social issues and so forth. Some of you may do it through being incredibly eloquent with the throat chakra, and Sandalphon here is the angel or archangel of music. So some of you may do it through music or poetry or writing or how you speak in some way. But it's interesting that Sandalphon is also the archangel of prayers. So we have prayer twice here. And then the crown chakra, which connects you directly to the divine. So I feel as though, although you would have the ability to be, as I say, a prophet in a way, you're less likely to get up on a pulpit and tell people what's sort of coming and sort of try and sort of take them to the promised land type of prophecy. It's more as though you take on around you, you absorb around you a lot of the sort of issues, karma, healing needs and so forth for others. You do it in a very precise way. Some of you may even do it, though it's very, very oracular and very spiritual, in a scientific way almost, or as I say, in a way of communication where there's a great deal of precision to what you do. So if you were into music, you could be very good at writing lyrics, and they're very beautiful. They scan, the poetry in it scans. It's not sort of all over the place. There's something about a communication that you do that connects to the divine, but I feel as though you operate as a kind of it's almost like a mediator with the upper realms on behalf of other people. This is part of what your healing is. It's a very interesting group of cards. It's almost like you could connect with the Ouroboros and speak on behalf of others and send prayers and healing to others and so forth, particularly around your community, your home life, the people that are closest to you. But with the augur, with mastery, it could be out on a more broad social sort of level as well too. And we are going to look into that sort of thing a little bit further in the reading. So it'll be interesting to see what we see there about where it reaches out beyond the most personal relationships. But there's something, you are like almost a way station. So to the degree that you can prophesy, it's more prophesying a solution and an agreement. It sounds very strange, but it's a very interesting energy, a kind of agreement to bring things back into balance and to get the right nourishment and nurturing for others. On earth, you do it a lot through understanding what's coming, and people will listen to you because you seem to know what's going on. But in the upper realms, you do it by almost singing a song of prayer for others. It's very lovely. It's a very lovely energy. And I think it does a lot around, as I say, generational karma, community karma, and healing others, but it's on that very deep spiritual level. So I feel like your oracular ability is as much seeing the implications of the past, how they need to be healed for a better future, if I was to sort of like sum it up. So let's see what Tarot has to say. Because you very much do it through your communication to the upper realms, and communication through speaking, looking at the chakras that are activated most by you. So it's healing, but it's healing through thought, word, prayer, spoken stuff, and connection to the divine. It's not sort of like healing at the root chakra or the heart chakra. It's very much about the balance of things, the karmic balance of things that you look at. So let's ask Tarot firstly. How developed are these skills now? Where are you at in developing and using these skills? Wow, okay. Okay. So what I got really strongly as I put this out is a prophet is never honoured in their land. There's a sense here that very, very well developed. Hierophant, the magician, you are an interesting mix between almost the conventional, traditional spiritual pathways and being a high magician. There's a kind of a connection of the two. Whether you have in this life studied those or whether that's something you brought in, each of you will know better, but you definitely have that, and there is definitely a destiny. What you do, what you say echoes. It becomes something that creates the new, creates the next turn of the wheel, all of that kind of thing. There's a real power and a real destiny to what you say. And some of you may become spiritual leaders. Spiritual leaders, potentially, if you're prepared to come out from just your sort of closest circle and heal beyond that. But it looks to me like many of you have a lot in your sort of immediate, so your family, your friendships and so forth. There's a lot of focus on that. There's a lot of healing to be done. So one of the questions for you is whether you stay a bit hidden, dealing with those energies, all those fours, sort of like, freeing the emotional, sort of egoic and sort of intellectual energy that's around you on a more private level. And some of it may be even you sorting it through for yourself, your own healing, your own karma. But I think a lot of this is about other people, or whether you take it to a larger stage. So I think that is one of the questions. And I think it's saying you're developed enough to take it to the larger stage. The question is whether that is where you feel you can do the most good, or whether being a little bit more the magician behind the scenes as opposed to the spiritual leader being seen is what you want to do. So let's ask, how can you make that choice? How can you develop this even more? How can you use this, I think, quite exceptional and very different ability even more? Okay. This is saying it's not about making it a business. I mean, you may potentially make some money out of it or something like that, but that's not really what this is about. You could use some of these skills in a business, but it doesn't look like you have a material outcome. You have a very emotional outcome. The interesting thing about this was it didn't feel like, because you've got the throat chakra and you've got the crown chakra, that it was in the heart, for instance, and yet a lot of the way that you can do this is actually in the heart, but I think it's through how you communicate. I think for many of you, you could weave an amazing storyline, an amazing narrative, an amazing song, something like that, that shifts people, that takes them spiritually somewhere else and gives them an aha moment in a way that all the sort of conventional healing or even sort of alternative modality healing would not do. There is something about really shifting emotional energies, but you've got to choose your target, I think, because you're in the process of uncovering a lot of this about yourself and about situations. I think most of you, there's a lot around your family or around the closest relationships around you that you are sorting out at the moment. And you may in fact feel a bit depleted by it. This is happening to show you who you are on a larger scale, but I feel at the moment it's actually saying, don't look to develop further, just look to go through this process. You are uncovering more and more about who you are, which is going to give you a sense of what level of destiny you want to choose, because you can choose and you can manifest whichever it is. But there's a hell of a lot about nurturing in your past or around sort of generational karma, as I say, what needs to be let go of on that material level, what emotional patterns need to be let go of. And it looks like you're in that process of doing it. And you may do it through prayer yourself. You may do it through writing a journal. You may do it through writing music. You haven't necessarily come out to show all that you can do, but you're very, very connected, and that's giving you that source of energy. Sandalphon is definitely, as I say, one to pray to or to connect to help you with that. So let's ask, what do you need to be cautious of? Because I think that any of these abilities, we also have to be cautious of those who might exploit it or a sort of shadow energy around it. So what would Spirit be suggesting you be cautious of at the moment, pile one? Okay. This is really interesting. You are very powerful. You are very powerful. And so what you have to be cautious of is what that means to you. So at the moment, what's going on is that you're starting to learn who you are. You're starting to deal with very significant things. You are an intermediary. That's what it effectively is. Your sort of oracular or divinatory thing is an intermediary with heaven. to put it really simply. What you have to be cautious of is as you start to expand what you do and understand it more, that you don't become egoic. And we all have that risk. When you're dealing with this level of connection, that is possible. You don't become egoic, you don't become judgmental of others, you don't think everything has to be brought down to clear the air, particularly around generational karma or things like that, or if you're talking into something political, you don't want to create a new form of injustice or a new form of karmic problem through being too quick to judge. So what this is saying is that you're not meant, your oracular ability is not meant to take sides, pole one. You're not meant to be partisan. So if you were looking at this from a political perspective, you're not meant to go, I'm on the side of this political party because they're right, and then you kind of ignore everything that they do as wrong and just demonize the other side. That happens a lot with this sort of stuff. When it gets into those sort of realms, you're not meant to take a side around a family dispute or anything like that. To clear the karma, there needs to be that compassion and a beauty and a balance and a precision with all. And you are the person to do it, and you do have the connection. But it is really important because this may be the choice between the magician and the Hierophant. I feel like Spirit is saying the magician, even if you do it in a more public level, that's not the problem. But the magician keeps everything in balance. The Hierophant can get a little bit stuck, a little bit judgmental, a little bit, what is the way, and take all before it. So there is a lot of power in you. The thing you have to be careful of is how you use it, that you understand that this is a gift that you've been given and you've developed it probably, but you are meant to be the intermediary, not the new boss, if that makes sense. Wow, you are a very interesting group of people, I have to say. So let's have a look at some of the other information we could get. So we wanted to have a look at a card from the Mist of Avalon to see almost the mythos that is around, that you could be embodying with your sort of inner oracle, pile one. The Holy Thorn. So this is interesting because I very much get the sense right now that you are going through quite a lot on a personal level, where this sort of intermediary role is being sort of called upon, either consciously or unconsciously. The Holy Thorn is the reminder that there are cycles in life, and there is hardship, and then there is joy to follow. I think this is to show, again, if you go through that process and you keep it beautiful and you keep it balanced, you can bring joy in, you can clear the karma. That's why it's so important not to become aggrieved or think, now I have this power I have to control to not let it happen. You have to let the cycles continue. Then you keep it sacred. This is about the sacred. It keeps you optimistic even when you're going through issues. It gives you perseverance and courage, because you are at the moment. This is why it's saying there is probably something you could do on a bigger stage, but at the moment you need to go through something yourself. It'll prepare you to use these abilities more. And it should, in some of the shadow of what you're dealing with, show you the risk if you could have if you get too full of the power, so that you understand not to become the thing that you've been battling against. Understand the cycles, understand joy comes and then there will be struggle and so forth. That's part of what you show. Part of your augury is to show the patterns. That's the intermediary understands that there is growth and then there is also joy, and that the right turning of the wheel provides for both. Okay, so let's have a look. We've already seen a little bit of the shadow there that you might need to deal with. Let's also ask from another oracle what other shadows you might need to be aware of in fully mastering your power, pile one. The Violet Duchess. Okay, all right, that's interesting. So the Violet Duchess can get stuck and can get bored once the battle is over, once the intrigue is done, and so forth. I think there's a really strong message here that, because it's like the, to much is given, much is expected sort of maxim, you have such a capacity to be a true intermediary with the divine, and to speak the truth and to clear karma and all of those things. But if you start to turn into a judge rather than a communicator and an intermediary, you can get stuck. And then the new generational karma builds up, and you start to feel you're not able to use your power anymore. You start to feel stuck, like there's no more development. So there's a very strong thing here. And I'm not meaning to say that any of you are egotistical or that you are power hungry, but I am saying that the ability you have is rare. And when you really start to see it, you're going to have to hold yourself under some strict regulation, because you have the capacity to get into some form of position of power or influence, and you want to make sure that you bring in the right cycles and so forth. You don't recreate the very things that you've been healing in your journey for yourself and for others. So let's ask the White Light Oracle for what kind of energetic protection we can have for you to avoid those potential pitfalls. Perfume of Sophia. Wow. Okay. So you are very, very, very connected. Sophia is the sort of Gnostic epitome of wisdom and of the mother principle, the divine feminine. It's very interesting because you've got the Empress reversed. You're dealing with a kind of almost opposite energy to that at the moment, but you can actually bring this divine wisdom through. And it could be suggesting that part of your oracular ability or clairsentience goes to clairalliance, which is being able to sort of smell things, smell the air, so to speak, know, by that, memories from sense and so forth, that kind of thing. So it could be pointing to that, but this is really about wisdom. So I think you're being given and downloaded the wisdom as well. And even hearing this is to just remind you, because it's so easy for us to consider if we've done a lot of good that therefore all we can ever do is good. But the reality is that we are every action we make and so forth, and we need to hold ourselves to account. But you do have the wisdom. This is saying that you have the wisdom not to get stuck in that, to keep the cycles going. So that's very encouraging, I would have said. So let's see how you then play this out in a community. So if you sort of, or the closest people to your family and community, how does your oracular and divinatory ability work for you there? Pilgrimage. It's going to take you on a journey. This is the Chariot. You are going through it at the moment. There's something going on in close relationships around you in some way, and that will start you on a journey. This is the beginning of a journey, and it is a pilgrimage. Very holy. There is a really holy sense to this, and that's why the sort of magician and the pilgrim side of things, as opposed to kind of the Hierophant and the power side, is the thing to always keep in mind. You will be a master of all of this as long as you keep moving. But if you get stuck in the power structures or in creating, in fact, you're not actually necessarily meant to create the new world. You're meant to heal the old world so the new world can create itself. And then you'll probably be doing it again and again and again, because that's what you're meant to do. That's what you can see. You can see how to heal the past and not replicate it in the future. So that's why this message is so strong to you about understanding to keep moving on. Okay, let's get you some fortune energy from the stars and from numerology around your oracular ability, pile one. So we're going to just look at sort of astrology and numerology energy around how you can best use your oracular, your inner oracle, let's put it that way. 22. I think it's like almost being hit over the head with a sledgehammer about how developed you guys are. I'm sure you must know. Or if you don't, think about what's going on at the moment, because there's a reason for it, and you are playing a role. You'll already be playing a role in that. You are a master at this. Cardinal, that's the initiator. You're meant to initiate the new. That's what I'm saying. It's sort of like you're healing the past so the new can be born. Then I think you have a pilgrimage to the next thing where you can do a similar thing. Jupiter, there's the wisdom, good luck, good fortune that comes out of it. Virgo, being able to be precise. There's the precision, there's the numbers, being able to ground that energy, being healing, but I think on this kind of much more macro level. And Void, of course. I think this is saying that this is part of the pilgrimage. Void, of course, would normally sort of mean feeling a bit lost, but I don't think that's what it's saying here. I think it's saying that you have to always be ready for the next pilgrimage. That one of the costs of this for you is that it may be hard to sort of set down roots. It doesn't mean you can't have a family or anything like that, but in terms of your spiritual quest, you will go on to the next area to heal, the next area to bring enlightenment to, the next area to pray for. There's a sort of I'm getting up kind of almost Francis of Assisi type feeling from those two cards together there. And your comfort in doing that, because you know that you are connected to the divine, you know that you can speak the right language in a way wherever it is going to be important. If you aren't willing to always be in the unknown, then you could get stuck. So I think that's why that's saying that. Okay, pile one, that's pretty impressive. So we are now at the point of doing the questions. So as I said, I would think the best thing to ask about is a couple of things around this pathway, but that's up to you. If there's something else you want to ask about, that's fine. So I've got a little pocket oracle here, and I'm just going to shuffle once while you think about your first question. And this may definitively say yes or no, or it might have something that's a little bit more obscure, but someone like you is more than able to figure out what it's saying if that's the case. So the answer to your first question, think about it, is no. So whatever it is that you were asking about, the answer is no. Okay. And for your second question, I'll just shuffle a little bit while you're thinking about it, because your second question might come from the fact that the first question is answered. For the second question, the answer is no need to worry. So whatever it is, particularly if maybe this made you worry, it's saying don't worry about it. But if they're two different things, then this is saying there's no need to worry about what you're doing. It may not be telling you definitively yes or no, but it's telling you probably whatever it is you would like to be the case, but you maybe are worried isn't the case, you don't need to worry. So pile one, very interesting. I think you're a very interesting group of people, probably very necessary for the world at the moment. And as I said, to those that much is given, much is expected. So don't allow yourself to get stuck or to become egotistical about it. Just keep moving with the pilgrimage. You have a very, very powerful purpose in the world. But the only thing that could trip you up in your development is getting stuck and getting caught in the ego stuff. So I hope that is helpful. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile two, to your reading. Just want to fix up the camera a bit. That got a little bit out of alignment. Okay, so the pendulum is the card that possibly brought you to the reading, or possibly number two. That certainly suggests that kind of sense of potentially mediumship and being able to work out yes, no questions, which is also partly here with the wishbone. So really being able to make good decisions. There's your inner oracle helps you work out how to navigate and how to make good decisions. And psychometry, which is the ability, sorry, I'm just trying to get this right, the ability to, say, hold things and be able to sense energies and things about people, you would have that ability as well too. So very, very high divinatory things, but it's sort of all about how to navigate personal issues and so forth. And that's probably necessary because you are dealing with some pretty significant issues. It's very interesting that we have Rick Biel as the archangel. This is an archangel of compassion and is being portrayed in this particular card as a kind of cosmic mediator and a cosmic diplomat almost. You can sort of see the UFOs around. And that kind of ability is probably necessary when some of the things you're dealing with might be on a kind of interdimensional level connected with things like the Alpha Draconians, which are by and large, just so you see the ring light covers some of that a bit, but by and large, sort of fairly, draconian, literally, sort of like very sort of totalitarian, difficult, power-oriented sort of energy. So whether you're literally dealing with that, and some of you may be, getting this particular archangel with the way that they are portrayed makes me think that there are many potential starseed or connections to sort of intergalactic and interdimensional energy people who've come to this one. But in any case, even if that is just allegorical to an intergalactic energy you're dealing with, you're also dealing with a lot of shadow issues. Could be within yourself that you're dealing with, and so you're using these abilities to navigate the course properly, or it could be with other people. Certainly there's a very creative element to what you do. With Leo, you're meant to be seen with this in some way. These skills are meant to be seen, whether literally that you become someone who practices these things for a living, or whether it's that you use these sort of abilities more subtly within some role that is seen. Something very creative, also potentially connecting to a great love or something like that, being able to really assess, see, feel and connect in to the great love. That could be the case, but I do think there's something very creative about how you express these abilities. So though it's possible that you could take up some form of divinatory type of job, and deal with a lot of people that are dealing with power issues in one form or another, I think it's more likely that you use this as your navigation around some creative message that you bring out, some dramatic message that you bring out. You are definitely meant to communicate with the throat chakra, and you are very much connected to the upper realms with the crown chakra. So you don't have to be too concerned if you're dealing with shadow issues, because you have a very strong connection to the higher realms, to what is going on, and you're able to communicate what you see in a very, I feel like many of you do it through something dramatic or through self-presentation or through something creative. It's like you feel like, the sort of singers in the 1960s that dealt with, like Bob Dylan or whatever, that dealt with sort of like major sort of political issues, but did it through something creative, through the throat, through the communication, through the creativity, through the self-presentation, connecting to something of a higher order, and also looking at much higher level type of issues that are going on. And then also being able to understand your own shadow self, because if you're in a very creative, dramatic sort of environment, or you're dealing with power, you need to understand your own shadow self as well. Otherwise you could potentially start to sort of imbue those sort of energies yourself. So having a really good navigational sense for that is really helpful. So let's use tarot, and let's ask a little bit more about how developed you are in your skills in relation to all this now, how it's sort of manifesting for you now. Okay. So the navigational side of your skills are already very, very well developed. You know that. You know that you can sort of do these sort of things. You know that you can sense the direction, and it gives you a peace of mind even when things are difficult, that is necessary. At the moment, though, you are dealing with something like that. This, I think, is why we've got the Alpha Draconian. This is why we've got the shadow self. It looks like you had something you were trying to do materially that has not fully, you haven't got the justified returns that you should have got for it. And you may even be questioning your ability for that reason. You might have thought, well, I did all this sort of, I had this sort of sense of what was coming. Why didn't it work out? Why has the dream not come into being? Why did I not get the recognition? But there's something else that's better that's coming. And so it's almost as though you're going to learn how good you were at this by going through a disappointment and then realizing that opened the door to something else. And it's partly also so that you can look at your own shadow self and your own expectations about what you should have got, and understand the system in which you're operating more, because it is a system. So it's like you are meant to ultimately do very well with whatever this is, and your navigational skills are much better than you are at the moment thinking, because you're just going through something that doesn't seem fair, that you haven't got the recognition. But that's actually to serve the purpose of teaching you something for something better, and will then show you that your skills were far more developed than you even thought before. So let's ask, how can you use them best then? Now, how can you sort of process through this energy and get to the Ace of Pentacles sooner rather than later? Okay. Certainly creativity. This is why we have Leo. This is why we have the 5th house. Creativity and potentially love, this is also the 5th house, are a real key to this. It's like maybe you thought you'd found the one on a love level. It hasn't really worked out, but that's because somehow as a result of that and the timing, it's going to be so that you do meet the one. You had a creative project that didn't get taken off. That's again for the timing, so that another one can be born. And it's sort of suggesting really start thinking creatively. Start using these sort of skills to navigate you to a creative thing that you can develop quite quickly, because there's a good opportunity coming. This is like a double blessing, Ace of Pentacles and Ace of Cups. There's something really beautiful meant to come from this. And you're meant to learn from what didn't work to bring something that is going to work and you can commit to. If it was around a love relationship, it's like you went through one that wasn't going to work so that you could find the one that would. Like, it's whatever it is, that's what it's about. The weird thing is It's like you use these skills to navigate, and you thought, right, I'm now on the right path, so I'm trundling down, and gee, it isn't working. But the only way you could get to the path that was going to work, which is a tributary over here, was that you had to go far enough down this to get to there. That's kind of the thing. And then you'll realize, oh, okay, that was what was going on. So I think it's just being open to it, but start planning creatively. Start sort of imagining and dreaming more. Don't get stuck in what hasn't worked. Dream more so that you can bring in something that is more real for you. Okay, so let's ask you what you need to be cautious of, because when we start dealing with oracular abilities, with divination, with anything in the spiritual arts on that level, there are things we have to be cautious of, and there is some shadow stuff and some system stuff around you. So let's see what Spirit would want to warn you about, pile 2. Okay. So it's interesting. This card came up in another one, and I think that one of the things it's saying, it might be a bit of a theme that's going to come through, I think, is that once you really start to understand your abilities in this area, one of the things you have to watch for is ego, like not getting too full of yourself. Like I said at the beginning, and we all do this to some degree around spiritual stuff. I think when people first start discovering spiritual abilities, they go from thinking, oh, this is interesting, I can do this, to thinking, oh, I can do all the things. There's a sort of a process that people go through, and then they kind of settle down. I think that there is just this thing that once you really start realizing what your ability is, it is important not to sort of then aggrandize yourself, because with Leo and with the 5th house, there's a possibility of doing that. It could be part of your shadow. It's sort of like recognizing that this is one of a number of skills that people have. And there is a thing about, instead of doing that, think about how you can share that energy with others, how you can help others. It's almost like you'll feel like, oh, I've got the keys to the kingdom now. I actually know how to navigate and get success. And that's wonderful, but share it. Don't just hold it to yourself. And don't feel I have to do that because other people have let me down before. And, don't hold on to bitterness from something before. It doesn't mean you have to go back to these people who haven't been fair. Like I always think, if people show you who they are, believe them. But don't get caught in a thing that says I have to hold on to my abilities and just for me because it hasn't worked out before with others. Don't do that. Don't get into the shadow side of it. Not everybody is going to be blocking you. Okay, so let's therefore have a look at some of the other elements of this. So I want to start firstly with the Mists of Avalon Oracle to see the kind of almost mythic element that you are living out through your inner oracle, pile 2. Wow, the Mists of Avalon itself. Again, it's about direction, and it's about knowing what's real, and what the boundaries should be. It talks about boundaries and so forth. This is, the sort of the witches going to Avalon itself, that kind of journey towards understanding what is real. And there is transformation around it and enchantment as well. So I think this is the thing. However this is playing out, and I do think a lot of you might be in kind of creative or dramatic or something like that sort of careers, or something that's very, very visible in some way. There's a lot of ego. There's a lot of, kind of keys to the kingdom type of stuff, and a lot of illusion and all of that kind of thing as well. That what you're trying to do is navigate your way through that, and that's the mythos of what you're doing. And that's why it's important that when you realize how good you are at doing this and that you have this type of ability, that you use it appropriately, and you don't close your mind to what could be good, and you don't hold on to it too much, because the sort of the ladies of the Lady of the Lake and the other sorts of women of Avalon, helped Arthur, helped others, think about that sort of thing. Okay, so we also want to get a card from Shadows and Light, the Oracle of Shadows and Light, to see anything more about the kind of shadow energy that you might be dealing with having these sort of oracle abilities. The Dried Flower Fairy, Sweet Memories. Okay. So this is, don't hold on too much to the past. Like, understand as you start to move out of what hasn't worked into what will work, that it was the necessary passageway. It was the way to get there. There wasn't another way to do it. But don't feel that means it has to replicate. And don't romanticize the past either. Don't sort of think, oh, okay, now I can go back and fix it up. There's something that didn't work, and you need to leave it alone because it was meant to take you where you were meant to go. You're meant to be always heading towards Avalon, so to speak. And so don't think, I want to go back and sort of fight it and get what is mine, so to speak. Just move on because you're meant to sort of move forward and not to get trapped in the past in some way. So you may have a little bit of a kind of a chip on your shoulder, and it's probably quite reasonable to have it, but it's just see that as just a necessary rite of passage, move into the future. Let's see from the White Light Oracle what energy can help you do that. Epsilon modulation. So this is all about developing trust. Trust in your own navigation, trust that the divine is sending you in the right direction. This is about reaching that kind of level of trust and calm to understand that maybe things take a bit of time, that you had to go through this, but you will get your reward. There are many blessings coming for you and you are on the right path. But just bringing you a certain sense of calm that doesn't require kind of going back and sort of making sure that you won everything. It can free you from the past by allowing you to see this is a passage and a development that is heading towards the right direction. So if you are feeling that, if you're feeling still aggravated by whatever this energy was that didn't work for you, it's sort of like get into that kind of sense of calm about that was okay, that I've learned from that. I know from that I actually always was on the right path, and I know better how to read the signs and the symbols and all that sort of thing that I've seen now. I'm learning who I am. Okay, so I also want to have a look with the Gospel of Aradia deck, how you can help your friends, your family, your community, whatever level you want to use these skills at on that kind of more collective level. Divinity. Oh, wow. Okay. So this is about divination. When you have really started to understand your capacity to do that and to navigate, you will help others to navigate. And if you can get into this space of accepting that everything has a reason, a purpose, and a learning journey, and to be able to let go of the past and let go of the system, understand the system a bit better, use it to navigate the system, but to understand sometimes there are things you just have to go through, and that's part of the development. You can help others with this divination. I think you will read in some way for friends or family or on a larger stage, or you will take what you have seen in that direction into something creative that will help others by giving them aha moments. Okay, so let's have a look at what astrology or numerology can help you with on your Oracle pathway, pile 2. Waxing crescent moon, which is about new intentions. You say, yeah, this is what you're meant to do at the moment. You're still going through this thing, I think, but the beginnings, you're going to be able to start focusing on what these two aces are, the Ace of Cups and the Ace of Pentacles. What is the new that you can bring in? That helps steer you in the right direction. Masculine, yeah, there's action to take. There could be also sort of male principles, sort of like a little bit of like sort of assertion and so forth. It's not a problem. Getting too caught up in it is another matter, but like taking steps, taking action is important. Earth. Yeah, and grounding this energy. What does this mean? This is the Ace of Pentacles. Many of you, this will be some sort of project, some sort of business, some sort of creative project, something like that you need to ground. 5, there is still some conflict around you. And there's a lot of change around you, but see it as that. See it as a process of change. Aquarius, and detach a bit. There is something transpersonal. There is something bigger that is being served. The crown chakra, very much connect to that. Meditate on that. And Leo again. Yeah, you're definitely meant to be seen, to be a bit dramatic, to be a leader, to be fiery, to be creative. And, and to allow it to be about you. There's nothing actually wrong with that. It's only if you get caught in it's all about you and it all has to be you and you can't trust other people, that would be an issue. But if you can have that detachment and that kind of dramatic sort of energy, there's a lot that you can do with this pile 2. Okay, so I said in the introduction that at the end we would reach a point where there would be a couple of questions. So I'm using a little oracle that has yes, no, and some other sort of nuances on that kind of thing. I would suggest asking some questions pursuant to this and the circumstances, but that's completely up to you. If you want to ask other things, that's fine too. So just be thinking about your first yes/no question as I just shuffle the cards. And the answer is unlikely. So whatever you're asking about is unlikely. Okay, and question 2, and I'll just give it a little bit longer in case it follows from that answer. Think about question 2. And the answer is you're going in the right direction. So I don't know if these things are related. If they are, it might be saying one particular outcome is unlikely, but don't worry, you're going in the right direction. And this circles right back to the beginning. You are going in the right direction. Even if you sort of feel, and it's interesting as a pendulum, even if you feel like, particularly given that answer, oh, you know, do I need to course correct? Overall, you're going in the right direction. So I hope that resonates for you, pile 2. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So we have the Wheel of Fortune, the fate sort of energy, a sense of fate, bigger picture changes, the sort of wheel within the world, the development of civilizations, the zeitgeist, all of those sorts of things. We also have nature, Ogham, nature, so a connection to nature, and alchemy. So there's something very strong in your oracular ability in understanding the balance of the spiritual and the scientific, the natural and the spiritual, and how that plays out in the Wheel of Fate, in how things can occur in the world. And it's very interesting. I do think that many who've come to this, you've come probably from other dimensions. You probably are a star seed, or you certainly are connected to that kind of energy. But what we're seeing here, we're seeing a real sense of the trends of the world, the nature of the world, the evolution of the world, the protection of the world, whatever it might be, on a very big scale. And it's about the ascension of man. It's about the next level. It's about how people can be taught to understand these things, to see the signs. And you're playing it out, however, on a very, very material level, on people's sense of security. Because we've got the 10th house, which is around career, being seen in the world. I think most of you at some stage, if not already, will be seen in the world for your ability to see trends, to understand what's coming, to be ahead of the pack. Some of you could literally work in forecasting or trends in some way with this. Or you could be in environmental sciences, or you could be in some form of sort of spiritual transformation, evolutionary group, and so forth. But it's material, it's in the areas of power, it's in your career, and it's in change, and it's about security. It's about people being able to move through major changes, probably the major changes that the world is going through, with a sense of security. We have the root chakra twice. You are here to bring major change, but to let people ground at the same time. And it's interesting we have the Anunnaki, because they are sometimes sort of seen as problematic, but within the story there's a Promethean story to the Anunnaki. So there's a sense of bringing sort of better technology, sort of more sort of advanced knowledge and everything to Earth, and you know, in the Sumerian times. So sort of really taking humanity from where it was to being sort of much more able to understand the nature of the universe, to be able to sort of create, to be able to evolve, all of those sort of things. So your oracular ability, your divinatory ability is on a big scale, and it's about revolution, evolution, ascension. Carabiel is that it's one of the cherubim, and the cherubim in the real sense, not the sort of like fat baby sort of like cute figures that you see, but the rather kind of awe-inspiring four-headed creatures, you know, with an eagle and a lion and a deer, I think that is, or it might be a ram or something, or a bull, I'm not sure, and then a human face, but like the four faces, you know, the sort of really strong power, but having said that, a huge golden light to actually help with Carabiel, to help people ascend, but might seem a little bit scary. You might seem a little bit scary, I have to say to people. I think you're like a big change agent. You're very powerful, or going to be very powerful. You see things coming way before other people. You could be a futurist in some way. But You are meant to use these things to help humanity go through a significant transformation and to feel able to feel safe and secure while that's going on. So this is going to play out in the scientific, the environmental, the political, maybe the spiritual leadership level, but that's what it is. And I think it comes from, something pretty profound from sort of interdimensional sort of experience and so forth. But it's not, you are formidable energies, I would say, Paltry. So let's have a look with tarot a little bit about this. So the first question I was asking you this is, how developed are you? And it's pretty obvious, but let's just say, like, how developed are you at the moment in this incarnation to take on what I think is a pretty big role in these interesting times that we live in at the moment? Because you are a creature of these times, I have to say. Very much. You're here for a reason. Okay, I think you're only really starting to see this in yourself. You've got a kind of creative idea about where things should be going. You've got a direction, but I think you've been a bit lost for a while. I think because you're on that like kind of level, I think it's like you're kind of looking at the world rather bemused at the moment, thinking like, why people can't see what's coming? It's obvious what's coming. And that's not happening at the moment. You're sort of maybe feeling a little bit detached from people. Your empathy or wishing to sort of help is not being understood for what it is. You've maybe even broken from like childhood sort of connections, childhood friends, childhood dreams in some way. Like it's like you have almost experienced or have been going through at the moment something on a micro level that you're seeing the world's going through on a macro level. It just looks like you've got detached from your emotional ties, from sort of friends, the thing you've seen or you've experienced some sort of reversal around fortunes, or you haven't been fairly remunerated, or you can sort of like see the decay around something, but you are starting to see, actually, there's still something I could do here. It's only really just started, and it's coming from this sort of sense of like, looking at this process almost as the Nigredo and alchemy, of like getting to that point where everything is kind of collapsing in on itself in a way, particularly emotionally, but a little bit materially as well. So probably because you're such a formidable force, you would speak truth. You would not sort of tolerate the kind of partisanship and so forth that's in the world at the moment. You may feel very alien, literally, because of that, but you're just starting to see a solution. So let's ask how you can develop that then. How can we develop that Two of Wands to come out of that sense of, seriously, is this world worth it, and the people around me worth it, and will I ever be understood sort of energy? Because you're just ahead of everybody else. This is the thing. I'm sure that, and the Anunnaki was seen as like completely alien and completely incomprehensible when they first turned up. So just understand that. But let's see how you can develop this. Okay, so this is very interesting. This card's turned up in the third question, which is about things to be cautious of in other readings so far. So I think it's very interesting it's here, because for you, you're meant to do it. And I feel with the King, you're meant to take on a very significant, visible role, and it's okay to be a bit egotistical about it. In fact, it's kind of necessary. You have to know that what you're doing is at a higher order. You have to know that it is going to, you can't sort of pussyfoot around this much longer, because otherwise you're not going to make the decisions you need to make. You've still got a little bit of time to sort that out, but you've got to move pretty fast from the Two of Wands to the King of Wands. You've got to understand who you are, because major change is coming whether you like it or not. So you've got to be prepared for that. You've got to lead when this change occurs. And, it could be anything. It could be a breakdown in a family. It could be something going on in the workplace. It could be political. It could be environmental. It could be anything. But that is coming, and you have to be prepared to take on the burden and let go of any emotional stuff around it, because you're here for a purpose. You're here to lead, and that does mean you take a burden. It does mean that you're the one who needs to make people feel secure when everything is kind of like collapsing and everything is changing. And you will have a leadership role in some way in this, but you have to be prepared to take that and to make decisions, because it almost looks like You haven't felt understood before, so you didn't make the decisions. Now you're going to be in some sort of situation where this ability that you have, which is significant, is going to make you have to lead out on some level. So you need to embrace that. You need to really embrace who you are. So let's ask what you need to be cautious of. If your ego is actually necessary, because ego is often the thing we have to be careful of when we're dealing with spiritual matters. But if in fact you have to take that on, and that it's pride that is justified as opposed to sort of illusory pride, what do you need to be aware of? What do you need to be cautious of? Okay. You need to be cautious of your own wish not to be seen because of whatever this hurt is. And you need to be cautious of like how much you want to hide away. Because I think that you feel there's something quite lonely about your path, and it's a bit painful because it's been a bit painful. But I think that, it won't be as painful. I think once you actually take on the leadership role, you're going to find that people follow you. But the time had to be right for that. People actually had to realise how much of a crisis things are to be able to hear you. They haven't been able to hear you yet. It's like there's been all this white noise, all this entertainment and, bifurcated sort of media and all that kind of stuff. And people have had enough of a normalcy bias and have felt okay enough to ignore you. But it's hitting a crisis point, so you have to take this role. So don't feel like you have to stay hidden. And don't worry so much about being alone and the pain you've been through before. The reality is that's the only thing that would be painful now, is to stay hidden. It's the only thing that will not fulfill what this is, because your time is coming. Really interesting. So I also wanted to look at, with the Mists of Avalon Oracle, what the mythos was that you are living out with this particular inner oracle, pile 3. The Tour. So this gives you the real sense that you're connected to the higher realms. You might be manifesting it through very, very material, very security-oriented things, but this is the Tour, is the highest sort of building on the highest hill. So the connection to the celestial, and it is the connection to the Arthurian legend itself. So this is about you understanding there is a very deep truth in what you're doing. There is a very deep source of this information that is coming from you, which is partly your own experience, I think, in other lifetimes and other dimensions, but I think it's also being channeled to you because you have a destiny. You do. Now, as I say, this doesn't have to, not every single one of you has to play it out on the world stage. Some of you may well, though, but some of you, it may be within your community, it may be within your family, but there is a time for truth, and that kind of level of truth that you have, you are meant to reach that summit. That's what's coming. That's the mythos that you're living out. It's that you can show the truth, because I don't think that you've been believed till now. So let's see what shadow you may need to deal with. Carousel Fairy, what comes around? Okay, so you may have a feeling that you're going to be caught over and over in this cycle. That, like, I'm literally getting here with the sort of like the steering wheel of the ship, and it's reversed, that you're just going to keep going round and round in circles around, people not getting it, not understanding it, not seeing it in time. And so, and it's almost like everybody's caught in the circus, the circus of whatever this is. So this is why you have to understand. It's almost like you have to come along and stop the carousel going and get everybody off the carousel and into a different way of looking at things. It's not going round and round and round in circles. So I think it's just, if you lose faith in the capacity to take this to another level, and you don't come out from hiding in a way, that's your shadow, because it's almost the shadow of, well, what's the point? Nobody understands. People are going to understand. They're going to understand because the rubber's about to hit the road, pile 3. And whether it's, like it's something political and, people are now not being able to pay for their food on their table. There's going to be some really fundamental things in some way around your life. So this is not going to keep happening. Okay, so let's see what white light energy can help you stay out of that sort of pessimism. Because it's interesting because this feels Promethean, the Anunnaki legend feels Promethean, and of course Prometheus suffered for bringing fire to mankind. The Anunnaki are somewhat vilified for what they brought and so forth. So you may have a bit of a worry about that. But I don't think that's really, it's only really if you stay hidden for that reason that's an issue. But let's see the white light energy for you. The mandala of the heart. So you might have noticed that I sort of stopped briefly with that. I sort of like got one that sort of like almost flew out, but it didn't feel right. So I kept shuffling. And this is interesting because I think I was meant to get to this card. This is about connecting to your heart. This is about believing in your heart. You are in a very hard environment. You've been around very difficult people, and you are going to be bringing messages in great deals of change. So the white light here, so that you don't get caught into that vortex of pain and feeling alone, is to connect back to your heart. It's a divine feminine. So I think there's a lot of almost divine masculine energy around you. There's a lot of kind of like organizational, political energy, but connecting to your heart, I think, is the important thing. If you do that and stay true to that, and the kind of love that you have for the world and for people, this is why you want to help. It's not about ego. That's why ego wasn't an issue for you. That's why you're meant to be a leader. You're very heart-centered, but a lot of the harshness around you can be difficult to deal with. So this is why you need to connect back to your heart. And then let's have a look and see with the Gospel of Aradia what you are meant to do with this for your friends, family, community, whatever level you are manifesting this on. The feminine again. Now, isn't that interesting? I do feel, as I say, that you're in this very political, very major change, very structural, very, very root chakra, very survival kind of energy and major change. But I think you are meant to bring in the heart-centered approach to this. So, the Anunnaki might have brought in the technology and so forth, but I think that you're bringing the heart in. This is how you're making people feel secure in change. So we're getting a little bit more of an idea. And this might be why it was so heartbreaking to date, because you only wanted to bring in the heart, but you weren't understood. You were, maybe seen as, a conspiracy theorist or something like that. I don't know, something. But you really are bringing the heart. And that's twice with that. There's that sort of energy of bringing that kind of connection back to people. Okay, let's get you some astrology and numerology energy to help you, pile 3. Pluto, there's the transformation. Yeah, you can't escape it. You're here to transform and transmute. And Uranus again, yep. You are the natural change agent, but through the heart, not through necessary technology and so forth. It's the missing ingredient. It's the pure ingredient in all of it. Square, yeah, there is some action that you need to take. We'll have a look at the planets. Capricorn, and it is in the material world, it is in the 10th house type of areas and so forth. But the 5th house as well, your heart, your creativity will help. And solar eclipse, I think this is the energy you're having to move beyond at the moment, where you have not been seen for what you are. But your time will come, and it's coming pretty soon. So let's have a look at what the planets are around the square. So this is the energy that's calling you to action. So we've got the sun. Well, yeah, your life path. You are born to be a change agent. Sun and Saturn, the change agent, the shifting of the old into the new. And it's very interesting too. Your life path, I think, connects to the divine feminine, the heart. Saturn is, in a sense, the divine masculine. This is the new, this is the structure, the breaking of the old to create the new, to birth the new. Very significant. Okay, pile 3. No pressure on you, as I sometimes say. Maybe to help you, as I said at the beginning in the introduction, I've now got this little oracle that has sort of yes, no, and other sort of nuanced answers along that. So I said be ready with a couple of questions. You may use the ones that you already had, or you might have come up with something about this. But if you could think about your first question now, I'll just shuffle to see what the answer is. Yes. So whatever you're asking, the answer is an unequivocal yes. Let's go to question 2. I'll just take a little bit longer to shuffle in case that answer has made you shift on what you want to ask about for question 2. So when you have question 2 in your mind, and if you need to stop the video while you think what it is, by all means do that, pause it. But question 2 now, please. The answer, not the right time. So whatever it is you're asking about, it's not quite the right time. It still might be a yes if they're connected, but not the right time at the moment. So pile 3, big shoes to fill with your inner oracle, I think, but don't doubt it. You really can do it, and I think your time is coming. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 4, to your reading. So along with the tarot, we have handwriting authenticity, so the capacity to read handwriting, the sort of the personality aspects and so forth. Shooting star, which is like confirmation. So I feel this is sort of saying that there is something about you using tarot or forms like that, so oracle cards and so forth, and an understanding of the way that people communicate and what you can see in the ways that they write and so forth as a form of confirmation for something. And it has to do with how you want to communicate authentically and from the heart, and what you want to bring into the world and create in the world from the heart. And that overarching all of it, you have Melchizedek, who is an archangel who's sort of like the grandfather of all the archangels. He sort of looks over the sort of golden rays of light and the sort of sense of sort of communion and so forth. So although we don't have the chakras like the crown chakra, he's there to sort of make sure that you get the information, that you can use these tools in some way. So it looks to me, the Syrians here are a very benevolent race. So if you have a starseed connection to them, then it is towards a very benevolent artistic race. But if this is just a distillation of your energy, it is about artistic integrity, truth, honesty. So is handwriting here authenticity. The throat chakra, it is connected with Celestite to divinity and wisdom, so to Melchizedek there. But I feel like there's a sense of part of your oracular ability is to be able to speak your truth in a beautiful and authentic way that confirms for others matters of love, matters of creativity and what they bring into the world, matters that manifest things in the world in a good and healthy and happy and grounded way, and matters of the heart. So certainly you can use it yourself around making sure you have the right relationships around you, but I suspect that you use this either directly, and because I wouldn't be surprised if many tarot readers came to this particular reading for fairly obvious reasons. I think if you're using it very directly, then you probably do a lot with people about relationships, creativity, self-development, artistic integrity, and how they manifest the good life and so forth, connecting to their spiritual purpose. And a lot of it is about how you speak the truth to them, and you can confirm the sort of inklings they have themselves and so forth. So I think that it's a sort of a heart-based, coaching, mentoring, guidance thing. It could also be through something that you write, something that you express, something you create yourself. And some of this may manifest in love when you meet the great love, so to speak, which is a possibility with some of these cards, that you will be able to use your inner oracle to confirm to yourself that is the case. So let's use the tarot and ask where you're up to, in terms of your development of these abilities. Okay, so of all the readings so far, I think you're the ones that doubt yourselves the most. You worry about it. Like to whatever degree these things come through, you worry about it. Is it authentic? Is it true? Is what I'm getting the right information and so forth? You're a little bit shy about coming out and saying anything. Though you're starting to see the imposition of barriers you've put in for yourself and doubts that you've put in for yourself. something that matters to you emotionally is starting to be confirmed. It could be a love relationship is starting to be confirmed. It could be just that some of what you've done to help others from the heart is being confirmed. You're starting to like very tentatively go, oh, actually, maybe there is something to this. Maybe I am able to do it, but you haven't fully owned it yet. You haven't owned your own high priestess yet. You kind of go, yeah, trust but verify. You worry about relying just on it. You're likely to sort of take some of the energy into creativity and so forth in some way and feel like you could do that, like you could use some of this information to help you create, to help you speak, to do all those things. But it's almost like you'd worry about trusting it for anything else. That's why we have shooting star for confirmation. You have the truth in what you're doing and the creative energy in what you're doing, and you've started to see from your heart what it could be, but you really doubt yourself, pile 4. So let's have a look at what you can do to develop more confidence in this, because you should have it. You know, this is saying that you actually have a great deal of truth that you speak, and there is a confirmation. And you don't get Melchizedek for nothing, I'm telling you that. So the reality is that you really do have it, but you just don't own it yet. So let's sort of see what advice Spirit has for you to start to come more into your own awareness of your ability and faith in your ability, which is really what it is. Okay, so Spirit is saying, think back. Think back how quickly you realize when relationships weren't right. So a lot of this is playing out around relationships, whether it's your relationships, whether it's relationships with friends and family, whether it's work relationships. You've been onto that quicker than anyone. You've known when it's not the right person for you. You've known when it's not the right person for your friends. Think back to that. Think back to that, because you were right about it. And understanding that, understanding where, you know, good emotions were being thrown after bad, so to speak, can allow you then to find where the happiness could be. So it's funny. It's almost like you're the sort of person who might have an instinct about someone, particularly say in a love relationship, and then go, no, that can't be right. I'm just going to pursue it. You go through the pain and then you think, oh, I should have known, because you knew right from the beginning. It's very telepathic. You're highly, highly telepathic. If you think back about this, if you think back about how quickly you knew that and how you were able to help others realize that, you're going to be a lot happier about embracing what you do, but you're also going to be able to use it more to find the love, bring the love and the happy family, the Taurus energy, the heart energy into yourself. It's like you've just got to remember that you've been right far more than you've been wrong. Okay, so then let's say, what do you need to be cautious of? So as you start to sort of like understand your kind of ability in this area and start to back yourself a bit on it, what do you need to be cautious of? So you have to be cautious of taking on other people's burdens. You're very heart-centered. You're very telepathic. You're probably highly empathic. And you do want other people to have this authenticity. But your aha moment is your aha moment. Other people have to come to it themselves. You can help them using these sort of abilities, certainly. But you have to liberate them to make their own decisions. So one of the things you're going to need to be careful of is that you don't, if you've started to understand that you really do see the future, you really do see what's going on, you're quicker to understand it, that you don't take on somebody else's decisions. You've got to keep people free. You can give them information. You can talk to them about alternatives, but don't take it on. So, and that can happen with people who do this sort of work. They can end up taking on a lot more sort of responsibility for people's choices than they ideally should. So that's the main risk for you once you realise. You're not there yet because you don't realise it yet, but once you do, don't feel that means that you have to be at everybody's beck and call and you've got to give the answers. All you really need to do is speak the truth that you see and let them find their confirmation and make their choices. Okay, so let's have a look with the Mists of Avalon deck about what is the mythos that your inner oracle is meant to live out. What are you living out on an almost mythical level with your oracle abilities? Branwen. So this is interesting because Branwen is about finding balance within yourself, and it's kind of between the logical and the sort of magical. So this is part of your journey, is to understand the magical within you, because you're very good at the logical. And I think what might happen is you might think, I just think very quickly. I come to those conclusions because of that. But in fact, some of it is in fact channeled. It's, you are in fact psychic as well. There is the spiritual, but you might have defaulted quite a bit to that. So this is a mythos of change that comes from understanding your own ability and understanding that those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. It's how you get it into balance. So it is kind of via your intellect and remembering that you're going to actually realize that you moved faster and more intuitively than you thought that you did, and that you are more able to do this. But that's the thing, you have a battle within about this. You kind of know you have it, but you also kind of doubt it at the same time. Let's have a look at the shadow that you need to deal with this ability. Two little witches. Okay, so that's about clearing energy as much as anything else. They're really here to get you to clear out those old attitudes and so forth. But the problem could be if you decided to clear out the belief in your own magic and just stick by logic, then that could be an issue. Or if you thought that every time there's sort of like a burden that comes with this, you just sweep it away and you kind of run away from your ability. There is a sense here of being a bit scared of your own abilities, not trusting them, being a bit scared. So the shadow is to make sure you only sweep away the doubt that doesn't work, to bring these things into balance, not sweep away one option, which might be the magical for the logical, or on the other hand, too much on the magical and not looking for the authenticity and the confirmation as well. It's like getting the things into balance. So that's the sort of issue. If you do start to believe, do you believe to the point that you don't verify and confirm? On the other hand, if you never start to believe, then you're never going to be sort of fully getting the true value of your brilliant mind and your sort of inner oracle. So let's see what the white light oracle can give to support you against the shadow energy there. Spirit bear. So definitely a sense of strength. So the spirit bear is very sort of nurturing, very much like a divine mother sort of energy. So I think this is here to make sure that you don't underestimate yourself, and that it's a protective energy so that you can nurture and understand all that you have and move forward with strength. And if you doubt yourself and you have those sorts of issues and so forth, if you felt that trusting that was somehow a weakness in some way, I think spirit bear is allowing you to come into the strength of knowing that. So let's see with the Gospel of Aradia what you're meant to do with this in terms of helping friends, family, community, whatever level you might use your inner oracle on. The Queen, wow. So some of you, once you really realize what you have, you might be actually helping a lot of people who are in positions of power to understand and confirm things. You may even go into a leadership role yourself, become a queen in a sense yourself with this. But you have to, and this is why you have to own what you have and not sweep it away. You have to nurture that energy, because I think you are meant to sort of help others in their leadership journey and so forth, but also yourself. And for some of you, because of the very strong sense of family and love here, there's almost like a kind of a lineage of power that you could be connected with, or that you are and you've somehow denied within yourself as a result of this. Very interesting. So, okay, let's get you some astrology and numerology energy to help you with your inner oracle puzzle. T-square. So, yeah, you are kind of at odds with yourself. We'll have a look at the planets. 3, so that's like community, connection, collaboration is going to help. Uranus, yeah, there is an internal revolution that you need to take. Saturn return, some of you may be coming up to your Saturn return. First one comes up between 28 and 30, second one between about 58 and 60 and so forth. So it comes around about that time frame. First one is about really coming into your own power. So if you're not literally doing that getting this in balance is coming into your own power. The second one is about freedom and liberation. So again, it could be you're finally free to look at this, because you've sort of had the family, you've had the love, you've done all of that sort of thing. Now you can really look at who you are. But there's something about coming into that next stage of understanding of self through this. Pluto and the revolution that occurs with that. So although there's a sense of structure in this, there's a lot of change around it as well. and waning crescent moon. So waning crescent moon is letting go of things and getting back to first principles, letting go of that self-doubt. Let's have a look at the planets that you've kind of got boxed in with, that you've kind of sort of like almost got working against each other, which is about your self-doubt. So I'm just going to deal out till I get planets. Moon, so your psychic ability, definitely. Jupiter, and your sense of expansion, your capacity to expand. You see, you're limiting yourself. And the planet that's working on this sort of like limitation that you're putting on yourself is Saturn. Yeah, the limitations you're putting on yourself. You are limiting your own expansion, your own psychic ability. Once you actually realize that and start to own it, you can liberate that energy very clearly. You can let go of what isn't working, and you can come into the sort of collaboration with others that I think are meant to be part of your leadership. Okay. So to finish off pile 4, as I said in the introduction, I'm using a little oracle deck that seemed to be a good way of finishing something about your own inner oracle for you to ask a couple of questions. They may be related to this reading, they may be related to other things, but whatever it is, please think about your first question now while I shuffle. And the answer to your first question is go, the time is right. So yeah, whatever you are wanting to do, thinking about doing, whatever you're asking about, there's a kind of a yes behind it, and the time is right. Okay, so ask your second question. If it's related to that and you need to stop and think about it, pause the video before you go on. Otherwise, just think about your second question now, please. And the answer is no need to worry. So if these were related, it's sort of like, should I do something? It goes yes, and you sort of immediately start thinking of all the reasons that it might not work. It's saying no need to worry. So there really is a kind of like back yourself energy overall about this. But I don't know what your questions were, so it could be saying other things as well. Certainly this would say a yes in a way. There's no need to worry about what you do. Or if the thing that would make you worry less was a no, then the answer is no, I would say. So I hope that resonates for you, pile 4. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.